lift
We can. I
it.
can raise it.
Yeah, just raise it. Beautiful.
Is that good?
Yeah, that's fine. I don't see why that's. I need to turn my headphone volume on.
Oh, here, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Is this one you?
Nope. That's me. Yep, there we go. Lovely, lovely. Oh, wow.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you can all hear me. Can I just get some chat messages to indicate that the audio is coming through fine? I guess that's a yes. All right. Well, welcome to our live stream of Nine Noir Lives. And to kick things off, I'm just going to have all the people that are with us tonight introduce themselves so that you know who's who. So I'll start, I guess. I'm Daniel. I'm the writer slash technical person for the game, and I'm the one trying to run this live stream. So if things completely crash and burn, then it's all on me. Uh, we also have two of our voice actors, one of our artists, and William, who does sort of the tea and coffee around the office for us. So if so,
How dare you, sir? Good day. I say good day. I'm William. I do the project management, and pulling all the things together, designing the game, putting it together in Visionaire. So that's my portion of it.
Kaylin,
And
perhaps
my
you'd
name
like
is-
to.
Yeah, sure. I'm Kaylin. I'm the concept artist and illustrator, so I'm responsible for designing and illustrating the environments and characters and just generally making everything pretty.
And she does an amazing job of it.
Oh, thank you.
And hello, I'm a voice actor. My name is Lucas Gilbertson, and I do the voice of Cuddles. And my compatriot in arms here is Carol Ann.
I'm Carol Ann, and I am the voice of Tabby.
Tabby.
Tabby!
I mean, we could actually mention that both of you guys do more than one voice at this point. I mean, we haven't done a full casting announcement, but certainly your voices, I think we can say. Carol Ann also does the voices of Professor Huggy, our intrepid botanist, and Edna, who some of you will know from our trailer can be licked.
Should be.
Over and over again. And actually, do you do any voices apart from Cuddles? Now that I think about it, as we've just established, you actually don't do the chief.
Which was surprising to me. Which I think I'll take a stab at. I think I want to. I want to find a couple moments to jump in as someone who isn't Cuddles, as like a fun little Easter egg. I always think it's fun to hear voice actors do multiple roles. It's kind of like
it's like a little treat to be like, who is doing the voice of that. It's one of my favorite.
It's fun.
Games,
I think it's cute when it's done in the right moments. So,
Yeah.
for example, there's been moments where I've rolled around in my head, doing the chief character, or doing the ticket person character. I've thought maybe I could do that as well. So I think we'll find moments for me to flex some other characters, but I also think
it'll be a secret surprise.
yeah, it'll be a secret surprise. I also think for the lead character, sometimes you want your lead to be relatively dynamic. So you want them to be able to transition in and out of a lot of different kind of vocal flavors within one character.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, you end up treading the ground that other characters could take. And so sometimes it ends up not really working. But I think we're going to try and make it happen. As long as you guys are okay with it, because you guys get the final say. So I'll send you some things.
Yeah, it really has been a joy working with Hermit Collective on the voice for this, because it completely feels like a two-way street. It's not just us telling them, here's the script, go make some voices. We sit in with them, we listen to them, we collaborate on ideas. I mean, they've had... I wish I could tell you guys about some of the ideas they've had for the future stuff that you're going to hear, but I mean, it's fantastic, and it's going to be really exciting.
There's one thing with the diary, which was a bit of an ad-lib, because when you guys do the voice, it's not just reading from the script, you put your own mark in it, and that's one of the best lines. I mean, we still, every time we hear it, we laugh, because it's so hilarious, it's just so natural. But we'll get there.
You need to know, as in terms of like any project that I've ever worked on, I think it's been a dream working with you guys.
Absolutely.
And sometimes I feel so much. I've even said this numerous times, where I feel like because I'm so effusive in going how much fun it is and how much I appreciate the working relationship, it feels like maybe that kind of waters down how genuine it is, and that's unfortunate. However, I have to keep on saying it because it's so true that working with you guys has been the most positive experience I've had, especially in terms of being collaborative and being like, let's just have fun. And the goal is to make it great. And if we can find any way to make something great, let's just figure it out. Let's do it.
It's really nice to have the opportunity to build the characters with you guys. It's been, honestly, like on our end, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, we're so excited, and we've been doing this now together for like a year and a half.
Year and a
Yeah.
half.
You guys have been working even longer. So
Yeah, I mean, I actually realized just today when I was talking to someone on Discord about the demo that this demo that everyone's been playing was built 2 years ago at this point. You know, it's and I mean the voice that voice that you guys did for us for the demo was in January of last year, 18 months ago. I mean, it's just crazy.
It's been a long, good road, you know. Now seeing everything come together, and you know, it's very satisfying. And seeing the launch coming up and the response we received with the demo, you know, it just feels so good. Putting it all together and actually seeing the fruit of it, you know.
And that's why it's such a shame for us to have to come on stream now and announce that we're cancelling the game. No, not really. Let's.
Okay, guys, I'm just gonna kick Daniel from this.
Okay, but yeah, let's get stuck into it. So we're going to play through the demo. Some parts I'll skip through a bit more quickly than others, but the idea is just for us to find some amusing parts of the game, talk about the voice that was done at particular, the sort of backstory behind some of the lines and some of the ideas and this and that. And so if you guys have any questions for us or for Eddie, for any of us, or about the game or pretty much anything, drop them in chat. William will keep an eye on that for us. And here we go.
Just a quick word on the feedback here, because clearly people are seeing that you said it's cancelled. It's not positive, Daniel. So that was a joke. Let's just get that out of the way.
No. This
the
is
kind of humor you can expect in the game.
This is that's a sort of emotional twist you can expect. 5 minutes in when a masked gunman bursts into the room. Okay, right.
Come on, Cuddles. You can do this.
Now I have to remember that I have to click to get through each void line.
So just to mention, you know, we've gotten some feedback about the intro, the demo length. Daniel, is it set to pause or?
It is. I'm clicking through it at the moment, but
okay, just hang tight, quick. So just on the intro, we've gotten some feedback that the intro is quite long, and that's true. It's like Daniel said, it is 2 years old. So we've actually already reworked the intro bit, but we couldn't get it into the Steam Festival demo. But hopefully it will be in for the September bit. The script is written. We've got the artwork. It's a much more focused experience. So that's just something to note, because the beginning is quite lengthy, but you know, that will definitely change in the main game.
Yeah, no, I think the plan is, I mean, Steam seems to be doing these demo festivals every 3 months like clockwork now. So the hope is that in September they'll do another, and we will be able to hopefully have the updated demo in for then. Since we are doing the final audio recording now, we can finally construct a full experience. We've been limited to date by not having final writing and not wanting to do another temporary, as it were, audio setup. But yeah, now that everything's finally coming together for the final release, we can actually show you guys how we really imagine it.
Can't wait. And this is the first time we've actually played this.
So we're seeing it with new eyes.
Yeah.
Doing it now.
I really enjoy those little noises you make while you're talking, you know, little air pops and things that normally you would filter out from audio.
Yeah. I'm not hearing any audio from this.
Yes.
Is that
Really?
just us?
If you're listening to me on Discord, it should be coming through there.
It's very soft.
Oh, is it very
I can
soft?
hear it, but it's very soft.
Okay, well, let me try and boost myself on Discord.
We're getting feedback that the audio is quiet.
Okay. Yeah, I can.
It's fine for me.
I'll tell you what. I can actually filter. There's a way of adding a boost here, a gain. Sure.
While you're doing that, I'll talk about, because you just mentioned you have some vocal flavor in there that oftentimes you'd kind of clean out, like little like breaths and vocal pops and stuff like that. And that is 100%. I'm extremely opinionated about voice acting, which makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, we've been doing it for a while.
20 years, something like that.
Since we were 14 years old, so we kind of grew up doing voice acting. So I've lot of opinions about how oftentimes I think there are just certain things that take place that kind of end up diminishing the quality of the voice work. And sometimes they're just weird little technical things. Like, engineers love to clean out vocal flavor.
And in some projects, that's absolutely appropriate. In some projects, you should absolutely have it.
Sometimes it's preferable. Absolutely. And so it really depends. You have to pick and choose. The thing with voice acting is that, like, every way of doing things is totally valid. You have to find the right application in the right moment. And so I don't know. I really liked, especially in this project, having it be very naturalistic and very conversational. It felt like it
adds a lot of life to the characters, I think.
Yeah.
And it was, I think it helps you get in touch too with the dialogue and to make it feel a little bit more connected.
Yeah.
To
have fun with it.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. It's just.
Yeah. So we have a lot of opinions like that I think I'll start ranting about. Like the thing about
started.
The thing about clicking your P when you're like, nope. I always do that. I don't know if you guys notice, but every time Cuddles says nope, I have to hit the P.
Yeah, nope. Yeah, it's great. It's great. It gives it an enormous amount of character. Very much enjoyed.
Well, that's the thing, Lucas. You give Cuddles so much life. We've told you before, but maybe for the people on the stream, we had an interview with a podcast interview, and the guy said, how did you get Ryan Reynolds to voice Cuddles? And we were like, what? And then it clicked. We were like, whoa, that sounds exactly like Ryan Reynolds, or in that ballpark,
I didn't get that for a long time, and then all of a sudden, especially recently, even on other stuff that we've been doing, I do these tutorials for this company, and people say like, "Oh, the voice of Deadpool is doing tutorials for this thing," and I was like, "Oh, I guess there's a thing, and maybe it's the Canadian in both of us. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's the highest praise, which I'm very. It's super like self-conscious making, if that's the right phrase.
It is now.
It makes it very self-conscious. You put your voice out there, and then you watch, and you just watch. You're like, I hope people like it. I hope people like me. So I'm super happy.
This we're coming up now on another thing, Lucas, that you sort of put some life into was just the name Ramon. I mean, I just picked Ramon because it rhymed with recorder, Ramon the recorder, and then you turned it into Ramon, and now it's become this thing throughout the rest of the game. It's fantastic.
Which one of my favorite things that it's not in the demo, but we it's super quiet for us. I still can't quite hear
I can't hear it at all.
So if I'm talking over top of the game dialogue, that's why I can't.
No problem. I had boosted it both my audio and the games by about 10 decibels, and that seems to have pretty much gotten it right. But for the game, don't worry too much about that. I mean, we are going to be talking, and unfortunately, we'll talk over some lines, but I'll pause it where necessary.
For Ramon, that's one of those funny things. Okay, because you can do that as a voice artist, and oftentimes people will just be like, "No, can you stop? I didn't tell you to do that. Don't do that." And with you guys, you want to always throw stuff out like that as an actor. You want to you're having fun. You're just trying stuff on to see what fits. And I think I mentioned to you guys, you have to allow people to make mistakes. You have to allow people to do the wrong thing so that they can find the right thing sometimes. Mm-hmm. And so having kind of a culture or a working relationship where it's okay to try things on for size, it allows you to find funny little things. Be like, why not? It just felt right.
Exactly. I mean, I was just telling someone in Discord earlier again, I was saying, one of the great things about the voice acting is how some lines which I've written, which I haven't really felt, I'm like, well, I can't think of anything better to put down than that. And then you'll record it and it will sound like grade A quality comedy, even though the line itself maybe isn't that funny, but just the way it's said, just it totally lifts it up. And I mean, that's just fantastic.
I have a question about that. So does it happen sometimes in reverse, where you have a line that you're like, I love this line, I wrote this and it's so great, and then you hear it spoken, and you're like, it lost the flavor. It lost the flavor. Does that happen?
I'm trying to think. I mean, I know I have lines. There's a couple lines in the game I love so much. I say them all the time, constantly, 50, 100 times a day. in context where they absolutely don't make sense, just because I love the feel of the line, maybe the structure of the words or whatever. And it's probably impossible for any voicing of that line to live up to my imagination of how it will sound. But yeah, I can't actually think of any offhand that I've gone, oh, that didn't really work. I mean, there were a few instances during the voice recording the other week when I did ask you to try and hit a specific tonality on the line, but once, 2 or 3 times out of thousands. So
yeah, thousands. Sometimes we feel like, because for people listening, the way that we record, we just blast through it. We sit there and we're like, let's roll, and then we work for 8 hours straight just talking.
Like 900 words an hour, just machining through it.
We got as fast as 1600 printed words per hour, which is like when we record like 5 times that much.
Yep.
But for finished words, 1600, which for us is super, and we could go faster, but
We shouldn't.
Without
I'm thinking about whether or not we could.
without breathing, just one big breath at the start, and then just 5 hours of exhalation and talking.
20,000 words later.
And then William has to edit like one 5-hour chunk of dialogue.
Please don't make me do that.
Oh.
But you guys, you know what? Just to add to that discussion about the voice work stuff, because what we found in reverse though is that sometimes the way you deliver the line actually, contributes to the character itself. So there's specific things that now sort of embodies Cuddles. His Ramon and his insecurities about his small paws. He's like a little kitten. He tends to pick things up and lick everything. So it sort of all forms into who this character becomes. I mean, we have a character called Edna, and we started with that voice recording, and initially we had a certain idea, but then after spending time with you guys, it actually transformed, and it's a totally different voice now, but it fits so much better. So that's maybe something. It's not always what we expect, but the end result is always really good.
Well, and again, you have to understand how that's not necessarily a common attitude for project directors and creators and writers to have. Oftentimes, they get very, very, it's also sometimes okay, but sometimes it can be negative, where they get extremely attached to very specific interpretations, and without realizing that those attachments might have implications, for example, for how long things take, which has a lot of scattered effects, right? So oftentimes it's not that their attachment to specific ideas is wrong or misplaced or even unachievable. It's that it's like, well, the method to achieving that is disproportionately time consuming, and then time turns into money, and it becomes very, very challenging.
I do think that's actually a huge thing that sets this particular project apart. It does feel very collaborative when it comes to creating the characters, and like how much of a straight man is someone, how wacky are we gonna get?
The more love you put into a project,
Exactly.
I think that prints for people.
And I think when we're all sitting here laughing, like I think there were a few times in my last session with you guys where I had tears streaming out of my eyes because laughing so hard. That really, and you can feel that. You can feel that in the dialogue.
Like, one of my favorite things about projects and properties is when the characters feel like they're my friends or my family. And it makes me think of Firefly, and projects like Firefly, or I can't think of other examples right now, but stuff kind of like that, where there's a humor and then also the characters, you just want to get to know them. I think that comes from just genuine characters that are enjoyable. So
Kudos to the writing.
Kudos to the writing, and kudos to the collaborative spirit.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, we'll have to see once we get into the meat of the writing. You guys have just done all the comedy so far. We haven't done the noir.
I can't wait.
But okay, let's skip through this a bit.
I'm not sure I agree. I actually think the sticky yellow notes on everything system was a huge success.
Such a Cuddles line.
It's one of my absolute favorite lines. I'm just imagining poor Tabby trying to operate in an office festooned with yellow sticky notes.
Festooned.
Sometimes, maybe, has good ideas. So we're
I really love the art in this office. It's so moody.
This was the first environment I saw. Was this art? And
this was the first one we ever had made, in fact, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And it sold me. It's beautiful. Like, the color composition is incredible. It all matches. It all looks really great.
Like I would live there.
Yeah. Very fast. I love it. I don't know what goes into making sets like this or designing images like this.
Well, I mean, Kaylin can say.
It's quite a process. Like, I guess, like, the first thing I start with is reading the script, and I mean, it's so descriptive as it is. You just initially start getting ideas right away. And then it's kind of just pulling from personal experience. You know, there's a lot of environments that I can identify with because I've been in. Yeah. And then I kind of just like run from there. And as I go, just go with it.
And that's what's amazing with Kaylin, because, you know, I would spend, you know, 20 minutes with her. I'll give her the spec. I'll take her through the actual gameplay, because the way we developers, we do temporary backgrounds. Then we actually build the content. We have a script on the side, so we make sure we pull all the loose little ends in, so there's consistency. If you talk to a character and you can talk to him again and so on, so that it's all consistent, gets built into the game with my terrible Photoshop skills, where I grab photos and put it in and it looks terrible. Kaylin has seen this. It looks horrible. But, you know, it's functional. So I actually take her through it. And then, you know, what's nice is I give her the high beach. You know, I would give her the 4 main things that needs to happen in the scene. And then I would just leave it, you know. And that is the fantastic thing, because it's less work on me. She takes that, and the results she gives back, and you know, the backgrounds she gives back. You know, then Daniel goes and he says, "Oh, you know what? This is a fantastic hotspot. You know, let's do this, and let's put this funny thing there." So that's sort of the process.
Awesome.
You know, it's very collaborative. I love it.
Exactly.
Yes,
It mirrors the collaborative aspect again, which I think is brilliant.
Absolutely.
So we have a question
I
here
want
in
the
chat.
Photoshop backgrounds too.
No, you don't.
Oh, no, you don't.
No, you don't.
I just want to get a screenshot. I just want to see.
It's
I'll
William will send them to me and say, so this is pretty much final, and it's like Michelangelo's David cut in half on top of a
Yes.
yeah, no, it's terrible.
Oh, my
But we have a question here in chat. If the same amount of dialogue comedy is throughout the game as in the demo, and I mean, I can throw this to the voice actors who've seen a large portion of the game to come. I mean, would you say that there's comedy throughout the game?
Oh my goodness! I would say in my experience, it gets funnier and funnier. It's like it builds. So
there are some
it's at
scenes,
least the same
and like
amount.
no spoilers for anyone, but there are some scenes and some characters coming up where I could barely hold myself together.
Yeah, I think it gets even funnier. But then there was a moment where I feel like we dropped it down, and it got kind of moody and emotional as well, which is kind of interesting for a comedic game, where it kind of, I felt like it kind of shifted between gears. And I don't know if I can be more specific than that. We might see that at the end of this demo. I don't know, but it's not in this demo.
It's not in this demo, no.
But
I think I know what you're talking about. But it's very much what I've been aiming for is how do you make a comedy noir game? How do you make a game about laughing and about essentially human darkness? You know, how do you bring those two together without it feeling tonally completely weird? And it's going to be. I'm very curious to see how people react to the path that we've taken, which is sort of a golden thread of noir in amongst this otherwise ordinary world, because there is nothing supernatural in this game. It's all set in a world very much like ours, in, say, you know, the 1970s, 1980s style. And it's just these characters just go about their lives, and some bad stuff has happened, and the city's got problems, and how do they deal with that? So yeah.
I think sometimes it can end up feeling a bit bittersweet, where there's comedy, but there's also an air of, you know, that noir. And so
absolutely,
I think it's kind of cool. But to answer the, you know, it's funny.
It's funny.
Funny throughout.
It's really
funny.
Yeah, I know there's some good stuff coming.
Okay. Cuddles Nutter Butter PI is speaking. The Cuddlenator. Nutter Butter Investigations. If you want it solved, you know who to... Involved.
Cuddles?
Best catchphrase ever.
Sir? Professor Huggy's delivery is here.
For
I'll be out in a second. Just
for lines like the Cuddlenator. I remember recording that one, and there's so many different ways you can do it, because I think the voice direction was like he puts on a deeper voice, and so Cuddles is kind of up here. He talks like this. So I could be like, the Cuddlenator. Is that really appropriate for that character? So I remember doing a number of different takes at a number of different times as we sent you kind of material to establish the voice. And going like, is it the Cuddlenator? The Cuddlenator. Like what is, when Cuddles does a voice, what voice does he do?
Yeah, exactly. It's actually,
I think he's settled on,
it's quite odd, a character doing a voice themselves, you know. It's like a sort of Inception level. Like, how do you, I mean, does the character just do your normal voice? Is that their version of a voice?
Yeah.
And Cynics asked about how many tongue twisters we subjected you to. I mean, apart from the one that is in the demo, which is Porky Pete's Riverpalooza Festathon, there's of course the one later on in the game which actually had Carol Ann stop and say, "You guys," when she saw what she had to say. And it took
we all needed to take a deep breath.
In the demo here, there's one coming up that I know took us several takes, especially as we were establishing the voices. And it's the one where Tabby says, agapanthesis.
Yes, I remember it.
We could not say, is it agapanthesis? I can't remember how you say that now. I have to see the word.
It's just,
I want to call him Agapanthropus.
Agapanthesis? Yeah, that took like 20 takes.
It did. I couldn't say that word.
Man, I laughed so much at that.
There was a line. We should do. You guys mentioned having an outtakes track or something.
Oh,
like that.
absolutely, yeah.
There's the one that I did that I stumbled over so badly.
Yes,
and it wasn't really
I
a
know
tongue twister.
yeah.
I was just stupid for a moment.
I remember
you. It had the word cabal in it. Yeah.
You reached the halfway point and your brain sort of shut off, and then it was just your tongue making noises for the rest of the line.
Random clicking.
Yeah.
And you got to the. And you actually got to the end, but it was basically another language. It was just none of the words made sense.
Never abandon a take. You got to finish talking no matter what.
Dear, yeah, no, we'll
Daniel's
definitely.
writing as well, you know. It's like sometimes I would read a thing and I would say, Daniel, I don't know what this word means, you know. And I mean, it's his vocabulary is quite expansive, you know. It just adds flavor to the game, you know.
You said one thing. Was it avuncular? And I had to look it up.
Yeah.
And I consider myself to have a really good vocabulary. We were just talking last night. I used the word vociferous.
Yeah, he just
in
the middle of
conversation
drops vociferous.
It's a good word.
And
It's a good
genuinely,
word.
And it meant and it was great. So for Daniel to come at me with like avuncular, and I'm like, wait, what? I have to look this up. And I'm like, I've been bested.
I mean, you realize, of course, that the very final part of the game isn't written yet, and I could now put in tongue twisters of a level that would wipe your throat out if I so chose. I mean, I'm just saying.
Torture the voice actors. Torture the voice actors.
And I'll put a note there: must be done in 2 takes, and then just 50 words of 100 letters each.
Guys, I think Daniel's drunk on power. I am going to disconnect you. No, I won't.
Well, I'm the one running the stream, so yeah.
Okay, well played.
She's my
Or
secretary.
coffee, sir?
Kinda new, but determined to make a difference. We get along well.
But
Oh gosh, sir, this is a lot more seedlings than I was expecting. The professor said it was only 1 or 2. I think she meant to say 1 or 200.
Yeah, she sure loves her place. Any cat can solve crimes, but try finding someone who can do filing, answer the phone, and remember how you like your coffee.
All right, sir, I've piled them up for now, but we really need to... Oh no, sir, the pile fell over and went into the fan duct. It's blowing all over. There's just dirt and little baby plants everywhere.
Yep, they'll do that to you. I often ask her for advice with cases. She might not
Just letting Tabby get on with whatever's happening. Yeah.
Just to mention here, the baby agapanthesis, she references Professor, and that's obviously Professor
Right into my
Huggy.
ear. It's gonna grow inside my
So for
brain.
those that played the demo, you can actually access Professor Huggy, or at least, you know, you can interact with her in some way. So if you haven't chatted to her, Daniel, just hang tight. If you haven't chatted to her in the demo, then you can maybe go back and just see if you can track down to interact with her. She's basically the fourth character in the demo that's not, you don't have to interact with her, but just a little side thing.
I think we'll actually chat to her in this session, so if I can remember the number at least.
You, doing all right in there, champ?
I'm on top of it, sir. Just give me a second to clean up.
The vacuum.
Okay, all done.
That's a super vacuum. 200 baby plants, done.
Did you show those seedlings who's boss, Tabster?
It was like a tornado in the nursery for a while, sir, but I sorted it out. Those cute little plant babies are all snuggled up in Professor Huggy's office now. I'll just water them every day and they'll be fine.
Just to mention...
and I've got some more exciting
Tabby.
news, sir. It's here.
So Tabby, initially, she's Cuddles' assistant, and she's got an important role in the game. But as we got the voice work in, and as we developed the character, she became more and more prominent, and she actually got expanded. That she's now also a playable character, and it's well merited. It really just adds something so great to the overall narrative arc that we're going for. And the feedback we got as well, the people really want to see more of Tabby and Cuddles, and Tabby being a playable character. It's a strong female lead. She's got agency. She affects the world, and she contributes to the narrative arc. So that was also important for us.
Special present I ordered to help you with
Absolutely.
your.
Well, I love the
little
relationship
problem.
between the two characters because it's so sincere,
Yeah.
and everything about them is so. Cuddles is sincere. Everything he says, he means, for the most part, and it's the same with Tabby. And so they get these wonderful bits of comedy, just from the earnestness of they're just this is just who they are. And I think recording this scene was one of my favorites because it was so well written that you could really I could, as an artist, I was like, yeah, no, I'm definitely I am feeling that there are baby plants being sucked into the vent. and I'm feeling the frustration of the paperwork, and Cuddles never knows where his badge is. And he needs help. He needs help, and he needs this recorder, and this is the best course of action. And so it's not even, she's not doing it to be funny or mean. It's just it's a very genuine expression of I'm helpful. We're doing it.
What I like about their relationship is that they seem like an old married couple, but they're not married. They're not together. And so I don't know if you guys put it in there intentionally, or maybe if I just made this up, or maybe we talked about it, but I always kind of just assumed that they had a secret sort of crush on each other. And I think that's just how we ended up sort of making them, I don't know, pseudo flirtatious.
You have a secret crush on me.
Maybe I do. She's my fiance.
Yeah, which I think has contributed a lot to the chemistry these two characters have, because you two obviously know each other so well. I mean, I think we'd be hard pressed to get the same sort of chemistry from two random voice actors who had no idea who each other were, if only because they wouldn't record together. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, true.
The way that it works with you guys is one of you's recording the other one, so you know exactly how they sounded when they did their line. So when it comes your turn, you know what fits in, what's going to work and stuff. As for the romantic side, I mean, I think early on we decided they definitely wouldn't have a romantic relationship, because I just thought it would just make things too complicated if I was trying to write a side romance on top of a noir story on top of a comedy game sort of thing. So I thought, let's keep it simple. And exactly what you said about the comedy of the earnestness. Crazy stuff happens and they play it absolutely straight-faced seriously, and there's just comedy in that. There just always is.
But there's also an upcoming line after Cuddles has spoken to the chief, and Tabby comes in and they talk about different things and her salary and stuff. But then there's this moment of really earnest caring. They've sort of now, they're playing around, and then there's an earnest moment where she says, I'm very worried about you going to the club. Be careful. Because she really does care for him quite a bit.
Yeah, so they do have kind of there's a tenderness in their relationship.
And it's just that very earnest, you know what? I think Tabby really genuinely is I like working here.
Yeah.
And Cuddles really genuinely needs a lot of help. Let's just be honest.
The way you said that was perfect. Like, come on, Cuddles. Let me just sort you out. Come along.
Where's your folder? I made you a folder.
Why did you put sticky notes on my sandwich again?
Oh dear.
It's cute. There's like a working, like a workplace appropriate love there, and it's very endearing. I don't know. I like it.
Yeah.
Question: talking about working together, how has the COVID affected recording and general development of the game?
Wow, you know what? We've been really, really fortunate in that recording is such a solo affair, typically, regardless.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the people that we work with, it's online. Like even you know, we live in Canada, you guys live in South Africa.
It's a bit of a commute, so we don't do it all the time.
Yeah.
2-3 times a week max. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Max.
we can talk. All you have to do is coordinate what time of day, because time zones.
Mm.
Beyond that, for recording performers, some performers have their own home studios, and so you don't even have to see them. And for performers that don't, they're just recording alone in a booth. And so when it's appropriate, and there's a period of time there where I don't think it was appropriate to have people going between houses, but
so we actually did a lot of our auditioning for this project.
We did all that remotely. Yeah. And so we were actually really able to move forward without really being impacted by the pandemic situation. So I think it's the strength of the internet economy where, you're kind of global and you're decentralized. It's lower overhead, and it's also less impacted by situations like that. So we're very fortunate, very fortunate.
Definitely.
Yeah, no.
Very lucky.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine there's probably going to be a bunch of games that are delayed 6-12 months simply because people can't work together, you know, and they can't get their stuff done.
If they have an office type setting where people are expected to be shoulder to shoulder,
if you can't
to make progress,
3 Canadian geese apart,
yeah,
at minimum.
I don't know if you've done this where you guys are, but they start giving all these weird guidelines so people remember how far to stay apart, and they say, well, 6 feet or whatever.
One hockey stick.
Because we're in Canada, they're like 1 hockey stick apart, please.
Yeah, here.
As a Canadian, we all fundamentally understand the distance.
But they started using in the parks. It'd be like you have to stay 3 geese apart.
I mean, to be fair, you just have to put 1 geese in between 2 people, and that's enough because they're not going to want to go anywhere near it.
Right. With murder geese.
Yeah, here it was just 0.7 of an elephant, which is a standard unit here. They just, you know.
1.5 shopping trolley.
Wow.
Let's carry on.
What? No, Tabby, come on. I thought you were joking. It's not that big of a deal, really. It's barely a problem. It's more of a charming quirk.
Well, your charming quirk made half the kids cry at last year's law enforcement holiday party when you accidentally shredded their gifts.
So I only noticed today while checking this out before the stream, but there's a missing space between the U and the first quote there, and that really annoys me. I thought I'd caught all of those.
Gift-induced clawing isn't something to be worried about, sir. We can fix it.
Clawing.
So you're going through with this, all right, Santa Claus?
Man, this line, I actually hate it because it implies Santa exists in this world, but it's too good of a pun to take out, so I've got to kind of just leave it in there. But I hate it. It's the only reference. I was telling you guys the other day about how, you know, you can't call something French in this world because there's no France, you know. So all these little things. But that's the only one that I just can't take out because it's just too good.
But I think it also... sorry, Lucas. I think it also talks about the bigger idea that we have for the game. You know, it's just... We see it as a living world, you know. We treat every aspect of it with so much respect, you know. It's a living world with living characters, and you know, it's important for us that is consistent, you know, so that when you play it, you actually feel like it's a real world, real characters, and you buy into the world, you know. We don't do fourth wall things, we don't put a lot of references in that's super obvious. We might put references in that we really enjoy of things, but it is obscure always, and I mean, if you have the same reference, a frame of reference, you would pick it up on it. But we're very careful with that sort of thing because we want people to just buy into the world and get lost in it. You know, it should be like, you know, sort of a happy place they go to, and it's a totally different world that they really enjoy.
I was sad about the French line. I think I thought about it as I was falling asleep one day, and so to make it less vague for people listening, like I was saying something about one of the things that you're interacting with, one of the puzzles, and then I was like, that's fancy, like French cuisine was basically the punchline. So I used the word French, and I remember I sat there as I was falling asleep that night. I was like, oh man, I thought that was so funny. I want to have it in there. And just as I'm falling asleep, a single tear rolls down my cheek. And I'm like, oh, maybe we can rewrite it. Maybe I can try again and reference something else. And then I was like, but no. It wouldn't make sense.
No,
and then I had to give over this part of myself, you know. And it was devastating.
Wow. And that has happened that happens for every single line in the game. I mean, that's the level of emotional investment that we've
It's significant. Yeah.
It is hard to give things up though. I mean, there's a part of the game later on where I had to delete 6,000 lines of writing because it just wasn't working. And yes, I tell you, that delete was the hardest thing I've ever done, because I'm like, but this is so cool, it's such a fun thing and people will love this, but it wasn't going to work and it had to go. So I mean, I copied it into another document and then I stared at it and then I closed that document and went on with my life. But I still think about those 6,000 words, like 6,000 little babies I had to murder.
Director's cut, Daniel. Director's cut.
That's what they say. They call it sometimes in arts. They call it murdering your darling.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You have to. And I mean, this isn't the only writing I've done, but this is definitely some of the most personal writing I've done. And it's really difficult to take a character that you've written all the stuff about and go delete.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay, so I'm going to skip over the tutorial just because it's.
You already know how to play it.
But it is absolutely some of my favorite of the voice lines, the whole gift subplot.
Very well then, sir. I'm gonna get back to cleaning up the rest of that mess outside. Oh, whiskers. There goes the phone. Hello? Oh, good evening, Chief. Yes, he just finished. Oh, yes, of course. Please hold.
Right, so this is the first time that players obviously get control of the character, and this is now obviously one of the things we want to resolve with the revised intro that William mentioned. I think in that intro it's maybe 10 or so lines, and then the players got control, so that's quite an improvement.
Chief of police on the line. He says it's urgent.
He always says that. It was even urgent when they needed an extra person for the interdepartmental volleyball game last week. I got sand in so many places. Ask him to phone back tomorrow, Tabby.
I think it might be really serious this time, sir. He said cucumber.
Whoa, hey. No need to use that sort of language.
So this is an interesting little thing. So obviously everyone knows, or maybe they don't, but a lot of people know that cats hate cucumbers. So you can they apparently think there might be snakes, so they freak out. At least most do. Owls apparently don't give a crap. But most cats freak out with cucumbers. So, you know, you put a line like that in where a cat will say cucumber as a sort of a curse word. It seems like a fun little thing. But it actually will sort of tie into stuff that happens later in the game, and quite a lot of work has been put into, and this has mostly happened by writing later parts of the game and then reworking earlier parts. But there's things that will crop up early in the game that are funny as they are, like you'll read them or you'll hear them and you'll chuckle and then you'll move on, and then there'll be a payoff later in the game with that same thing in a way you absolutely don't expect. That makes it 10 times funnier, because what you thought it was when you first heard about it is not what it actually ends up being inside this world. Because of course, these aren't characters that are going to turn to the camera and go, as you know, blah, 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 blah. This exposition simply isn't given to you. You have to infer it from hotspots in the world, things people say. So you can only build up a mental model from the information you're given. And I deliberately keep some information back from you to make you think, well, okay, so that's how X is in this world. And then when you get later on and it happens again or happens in a different way, you're going to go, oh, so actually it's like this. And I think those little touches are really going to make people enjoy replaying it. Because, I mean, typically once you've played an adventure game and you know the puzzles, second time through, it's not about the challenge anymore. It's just about enjoying the world. And being able to play it through again and know what certain things are going to pay off later lets you enjoy them even more the second time through, as it were. So I think that's going to be quite entertaining. At least I hope. I mean, yeah.
The comedy adds up. The more you interact with the world, the more it's like Arrested Development, you know, where I don't know who here's.
Well, that's high praise to compare this game to, but yeah.
Because it builds up, and the longer the series goes, the funnier it gets.
Well, because you get to know the characters and the world and the relationships between different people.
Yeah. And so it less holds your hand through it, and it more invites you to kind of just like click on everything, read everything, hear everything. And because some jokes we started doing where it's like it's a reference in our vocal mannerisms sometimes.
Oh yeah, no.
So the more that you interact with it, the funnier it becomes, which I think is a nice surprise. And yeah, to your point, it plays to the replayability.
I'm actually not sure if people are aware of this. I mean, I didn't explicitly mention it anywhere, but most hotspots have 2 interactions for each action you can do on them. So if you lick something and you lick it a second time, you will get, in almost all cases, a second line which plays off of the first one. And that's true for looking, licking, and using every hotspot in the world, every item in the world, every person in the world, and every item in your inventory, as well as every interaction of every item in your inventory with every other item. So we've really gone all out, you know. It's all there.
To add to that, it's not just, you know, because we like doing all that work, you know, it's a lot of work, but it's got specific purpose in, you know, game design purpose, in the sense of if you get stuck, and there are difficult puzzles in the game, you know, we ramp it up systematically. It's never unfair. We put enough signposting and clear signals as to what you need to do. But there are some challenging parts, and the reason why there's a lot of dialogue as well is because if you are stuck, then, you know, it allows you to go through different things and hear different things at different times. You know, it's not you hear one piece of dialogue 20 times when you interact with an object. So that's also the reasoning there, because it needs to be enjoyable for you. You know, you're stuck, you go, you click through things, and you realize, oh, but, you know, here I'm getting a small hint. You know, so it sort of pads out the experience, but in a good way.
Yeah,
you're stuck specifically.
I mean, we really don't want people to have to go to the internet to solve any of the puzzles in the game. For example, games like Thimbleweed have got multiple difficulty modes where the puzzles literally become easier if you play on the easier difficulty. We didn't have the resources or time for that, so the puzzle difficulty is fixed, but the amount of hints you get in the world can be altered by switching on the story mode. So in story mode, then the little help book that you've got will give much stronger hints about what you need to do, whereas in normal mode it's more of a keeping track of what you've done thing. And in normal mode we expect the player to use logic and context to try and figure out what to do. So they need to achieve a certain puzzle. They're like, okay, you know, what might achieve that, and then try items out or look at items or talk to people. I mean, in many cases you can come and chat to Tabby because that's the logical thing to do. You know, Tabby's a smart girl, she knows what's going on. You can say to her, listen, I'm trying to do this, and she might have a hint for you, or she might not, and then you have to try something else. So the world is the first and primary resource that we want players to have when solving puzzles, and the second resource is their little help book, and then if they really get stuck they can turn on story mode, because you can toggle it on and off at any time. Turn it on, get an exact hint of what to do, still not literally telling you what to do, but a very strong hint. And if you're still struggling after that, then sure, you can probably go to the internet, but I think it'll be unnecessary if we do the help system right.
All right, I guess I'd better take this.
Patching him through, sir.
Nutter butter. Hello?
There's your other voice, Lucas, of course.
Yep.
Evening, Chief. How's things at Police HQ tonight?
Maybe just to explain the joke, until this 3 minutes before the stream started, half of us believed that Lucas had done the voice for the chief, and the other half of us had realized he hadn't. But
we had a collective delusion here at the studio for some reason that Lucas was that voice, and he is absolutely not. That is that's somebody completely different.
But yeah, William and I were just like, wow, that performance is incredible. It sounds
is
nothing like
amazing.
you. It's the best thing you've ever done.
It was actually me doing the voice of the chief.
That's incredible. Tabby's under the desk.
I mean, although to be fair, I mean, Huggy's voice we also thought was a different actress, and that is you, so good job.
That is me, yeah.
The
That's
Professor
some
Huggy.
pretty strong language, Chief. How can I help?
I just got word of a situation.
Did I just hear an actual cat somewhere? That's fantastic.
There is an actual cat who wants to come and check out the stream.
It's not clear yet what happened exactly. I need you to get down there and investigate.
This is actually what happens during our recording sessions when we're listening in, because the cat always tries to get into the booth. So you hear this yowling from outside, and they just like, just give us a second. Door opens, cat comes in. It's like, okay, let's carry on.
Yeah, he's a very central figure at our studio. He just had his 16th birthday, so he's been around for a lot of sessions. Very demanding, though, as cats are, as they should be, as is their right.
Isn't it
I
owned
think
by a
then
mob
all of
boss
us
or something?
all of us are owned by cats.
Basically.
Yeah.
You actually aren't allowed to work on this project unless you have a cat. We had an artist before Kaylin. We had to fire him. He didn't have a cat. He had a dog. We're like, listen, this is unacceptable. People are going to find out. There's going to be drama. It's going to be on CNN. We just can't have this. I'm sorry.
You know, he sent through a photo of his dog wearing a cat suit, and we were like, oh.
Nice try.
Points for trying, but I'm sorry. It's just.
You got to applaud the effort, though.
We suspect the place where his piles of dirty money get cleaned.
I can't stop myself from hearing Lucas in this voice. I mean, it's almost there. It's like, yeah, no, I can see how this works.
Find any of those
Yeah.
tiles. Can I keep them?
Well, it's just, I think when you believe something so
Yeah.
hard.
Well, I mean, we had no
hard.
reason to doubt you, because you were like, oh yeah, no, it was me, 100%.
Yeah, and then we I caught a brief clip of it the other day, and I was like, oh no, that's definitely not. No, very wrong.
Something else that's interesting about this demo, because it is 2 years old, certainly the writing, the tone is actually slightly more serious than the revised intro. This was, I mean, as I've mentioned in some of my newsletters and so on, the original tone for this was actually 100% noir. There was no real comedy, and it took until the end of this part, basically until we reached the club, for us to realize, listen, this isn't really working for us. You know, it's too much, too heavy. We wanted to do something lighter, and that's when we pivoted to have more comedy in it. So the leftovers of that.
Wonderful.
The leftovers of that is that, for example, we'll see later the hot spots outside the club, when Cuddles looks at the cats dancing and things like that. Some of those lines are actually very dark, much darker than pretty much everything else around it. To the point that once you know it's there, you can't unsee it. It's like, wow, that was a very heavy line for the opening of a comedy game. So it's just interesting how bits of these things persist, and people have no idea usually until someone on a live stream points it out to them.
Well, yeah, and how wonderful, because the comedy that you guys write is so funny and so natural, that I think my life would actually have been a little bit worse if I didn't have this game in it.
I just had to step out for a moment, but I'm back now, and I've had the stream on as I was walking around. I heard you guys talking about the chief, and I just wanted to add a quick little thing about that. So the guy, his name's Rylan. Shout out to my homie Rylan. He's the voice of the chief there, and so I was super confused. So I then texted him, and I was like, Rylan, I don't think you're supposed to be in this. I think we re-recorded, and I just didn't send them the files. And like, I was like, I could have sworn that you were what? And I was so confused. Funny. And then he was so confused, and he was like, no, like we did a voice test, and we recorded with them, and I talked to them, and I met them, and everything. And I was like, what? When did I do that?
Yeah, that didn't happen. Did we? It's
just this demo has been a labor of love, a long time coming, and I think that was that was a year and a half ago or whatever,
Really?
and so we just got completely wrong.
I mean, I would have sworn until right now that we had never spoken to the voice actor who did the Chief's lines.
Right? So we were doing so much that we all completely forgot that any of this took place, and we're like, okay, it's 2020, let's go. So apparently, and I looked back in my emails, and Rylan was right. Like we talked about this, and you guys were in on a session with me and Rylan.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like, how did I forget that any of this had happened?
2020 induced amnesia. It just erased 2019. Apparently.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah, so
that is strange. Please tell him sorry, because I literally have no idea who he is or anything. It's like I've just forgotten about him.
It's just I think it's when you're juggling a lot, you're doing a lot of work, and then some time passes.
It's been crazy.
When you're working in game dev, so when you're working on a game, things change like every couple of hours, and it's a lot of like mental gymnastics to keep track of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's nothing against him.
Every now and again, a Canadian just gets forgotten. Yeah, I mean that's just how it goes.
Oh, my heart.
That's the saddest thing I've ever heard.
Like every time you hear a bell ring and Angel got their wings, it's like every once in a while a Canadian just gets forgotten. It's tragic. I don't know.
Oh, sorry.
Could be worse.
Sorry.
Could be eaten by a moose or a goose or something.
Or a beaver, you get chewed down.
More likely a goose.
Small window of time. That's where you come in, Nutter, but I do not want to kick off a war with the Montemules. You're a neutral party.
Yes, sir. If it's such a tense situation.
Nutter butter. Don't make me regret coming.
And here begins the great Alfonso saga.
Who'd you call first? Wait, was it that hack Alfonso? You know he lost his own car keys for 9 months once, right? Oh, he couldn't solve a case if the perp was tied to his collar.
I've always thought the start of that line has it's slightly oddly paced, don't you think? Like every word is being pronounced quite carefully. It's not off. It's just like, oh, that was.
I can't hear. I turned on the stream and I can hear the voices on the stream, but I still can't hear them. There's probably a setting that I've messed up on our end. But I think I know what you're talking about, and I think in this early part here, just you had also mentioned just a couple minutes ago about how initially I think we're supposed to be a much more kind of just film noir,
serious noir.
Right? Yeah.
Noir. Yeah. And it was intended to be conversational in a I don't know, like you can hear as I'm talking right now, I'm a relatively emphatic person as I'm naturally speaking. And so initially we were kind of tamping down Cuddles in a lot of moments to make sure that he was a bit more even and a bit more conversational in that sense. So I think we've started to move away from that, or at least we've found a different balance where he can move into that. But he can also move away from that a little bit. And I think my impression is that there's aspects of this opening stretch that I would, and we can talk about this, I don't know, that I would re-record because we did do this almost 2 years ago. I would re-record them to match more tempo and the style that we're recording in now. Because there's been a few things that I've heard when I've watched a couple streams and stuff like that, where I've been like, oh yeah, that is a little bit slow. That's a little... like it's just a slightly different characterization. Same voice, slightly different tempo and character. Yeah. So I think that's one of the things that we might address is actually re-recording and buffing up a couple of these spots to match the energy that the character currently has. So, and again, that's up to you guys. It's up to the audience to be like, what do we want? And
well, it's actually up to the stream. Vote now.
Vote now. Do you want crazy, kooky, zany voices? Yeah.
Redo everything as Rick and Morty characters. Cuddles, Poopy Butthole, and Tabby, I don't know, Space Meister.
Yeah, Daniel, we have a message. I vote Dan does every voice.
Yeah, that won't work because I only have one voice.
And we also had another comment, Nutter Butter, but without the ER at the end. So
Nutter Butter. I really like that though. Nutter Butter. There's a character later on who we briefly, for for quite a while considered giving a very heavy New York cop accent. But I don't think that's happening anymore. I think that guy's doing a different character now. But I mean, it's exactly that sort of thing. I'm walking here. That's my best New York. It's pretty flawless. I think you'll agree.
And you guys, as an Easter egg, if I can say, maybe I won't say who, but we do plan on having you guys do some voices in the game as well. So your lovely voices will be heard as characters.
In the credits, it will say, and Daniel as the voice of Microwave or something. And I was go beep, 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 beep. Oh, the coffee's ready.
That's uncanny, Daniel. That's really good.
I can do anything voice-wise. I mean, my range is incredible.
No, I think we've all voiced things inanimate. Like Lucas voiced an oil can.
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I voiced an oil can in a robots cartoon, and all he said was oil. I knew it. That was the entire joke. Oil, please. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh my goodness.
The repercussions of it probably involves the clawed machines and barrels of acid. If it comes to that, I'd rather it be you than one of my guys. I'm sure you understand.
Oh, Chief, that's so... well, actually, that's pretty awful. Did you say declawing machine?
All facts.
I like how he just completely ignores that. He's just like, get over it.
Don't let me down.
Yeah, so... I mean, how many paws are they going through to need a machine to... Do they keep them? Is there a room somewhere?
I mean, it's probably a bad idea for me to laugh at my own writing, but I really enjoyed that little interaction. And also the way Cuddles remains obsessed with it for the rest of the demo.
Well,
We've got ourselves a big one, Tabby. Safety of the city, lives in the balance sort of thing. Cancel my appointments and get yourself plenty of coffee. I have a feeling it's going to be a busy night. I'm gonna head straight to the Decline Club to see what we've got.
the what?
Oh, did I say Decline Club? Ha ha ha! That's certainly not preying on my or anything. I meant the Kitty Club.
Well, we don't take midnight appointments, so nothing to cancel there. And I'm already ahead of you with the coffee.
Someone said earlier that Tabby is the like a mother whose child is going to second grade for the first time and is carefully packing their lunchbox. And that voice is just like that. It's like, well, everything you've said is taken care of already, but I will let you know. You know.
In the sections where...
Say the Nitty Kitty Club? Where all the criminals hang out?
In the section where you play as Tabby, she often references, I'm not Cuddles. I'm not going to do that,
I don't look everything.
I don't pick up everything in the world,
Yeah.
Not all of them, Tabby. I'm sure some hang out in dark alleyways and large empty warehouses down at the docks and such.
Someone there in chat says Tabby's number one. That is feedback we've consistently had, is the voice acting for Tabby is everyone's favorite, so good job.
That was also Lucas.
I got so jealous. It caused such a rift in our relationship where I'm like, oh, they like me better than they like me, do they? And then I give her the cold shoulder for like the next 5 days.
Harsh, guys. Harsh.
It's extremely, it causes issues for us. So. But no, I agree. She's hilarious.
It doesn't matter. This is really going to put us on the map. We'll be big time in no time, as they say.
I think I love
That's very
that Cuddles has this like very
sir.
rich
But those
inner life
monsters,
where he like
from what I've
spins
read in
out
the
into
news,
like
they're real
very
mean.
elaborate like almost daydream like horror fantasies,
Mm.
which comes back later just like really, my God, down at the docks,
Yeah.
Kitty Club. How many paws do they have? That they need a room where they did it. Like,
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite lines initially
Yeah.
from the first.
I remember,
episode.
yeah. But I mean, he keeps doing it, as you guys know. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
he'll see something or something will happen, and he'll just get immediately like this whole alternate reality constructs in his head, and then someone will be like, "What? No, why? That doesn't make any sense." He's like, "Oh, well, I suppose."
With the restructuring of the intro, we're actually removing the option to play the demo in the game. It's the tutorial in the game itself. When you click new game, you get the option: do you want to play the tutorial or not? If you click yes, then it actually shows Cuddle sleeping on the couch, and he's actually dreaming the tutorial. And then Tabby walks up and she's like, "I'm a figment of your imagination." But then she helps him to learn, you know, he needs to sharpen his detective skills. But it's really cute. That's the route we're going. So it just sort of enforces his whole daydreaming aspect. You know, he's a bit all over the place sometimes.
There, all right?
And there's Tabby's little, as you said earlier, you know, taking care of him.
I don't want to see your face on the television tomorrow under the title "Missing, Presumed Chopped Up, and Thrown into the
Looking after him, but in her own way. She isn't sugarcoating what it's like.
You better be standing right here in front of me.
Don't worry, Tabs. I'll be sure to come back in one piece. We both know this place wouldn't be the same without me.
Well, true, but that's not quite what I meant. You've forgotten to pay me this week. Again. But I just realized you don't need all your limbs to sign a check.
I mean, one of the things you said during the recording was you loved how catty all of the cats in this cat game are.
Yeah.
And I mean, she pivots from, you know, take care of yourself, but, you know, don't forget to pay me and keep your arms.
Yeah.
There's nice scary mobsters to just go for the legs first.
He'll have to sign the checks with his feet. I mean, I don't quite know what the line's about.
I think this is really cute, like playful sarcasm that's throughout.
Yeah.
My new buddy here.
Like each character sort of has their own way of expressing their cattiness.
Say hi, Ramon.
Like their own mannerisms and their own
you named the recorder.
You know, their own personality,
Well,
and it's very clear when you start recording the dialogue.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, thought I'd just go over a couple of things quickly. So, as we've said before, you've got a little sort of, not diary per se, well, we really have to change that font to be less Times New Roman, but this is intended for you to keep track of what you're doing and not to really directly give you any information about what you need to do. So it will say stuff like, I need to get to the Nitty-Gritty Club. It won't say anything more than that, or it might say, I need to find a way to do X, and then it's up to you to figure out what to do. And this little icon here shows you all of the hotspots by putting a tiny little icon over them, which is something that wasn't in a lot of original adventure games, but it's another way of just avoiding you basically moving your cursor to the top of the screen and starting to scan line by line to see what changes the cursor. I mean, it's unnecessary. What does it add? You can enjoy the art without having to mouse over every little thing of potential interest. Not to mention puzzles where you have to get that little point just there before something activates, you know, sort of thing.
It's about accessibility. You know, we want to make it easy for people to enjoy the game. We don't want to obstruct them enjoying the game.
Because it's about cats, I mean, we really want people who like cats but maybe haven't played this genre before to enjoy the game, and we see no reason to make it unnecessarily difficult or obtuse for them, you know? Because why? I mean, if they just want to play through the game and enjoy the story and look at the cats saying funny things, why shouldn't they, you know? I really love this screen. This is probably my favorite screen in the whole. Is it?
It's the world map. But just also to mention, you know, it's so satisfying because at this point in development, we have about, I think, 6 or 7 different areas open. So when you view the map and you see all the different areas, it's so satisfying having this actually populated with all the different parts. So it's really cool.
Yeah.
Citizen, please do not approach any closer. This is a crime scene.
I love him.
That means you, Cuddles.
We had one of the streamers say, "Is that a dog?" Is a dog? We're like, okay, it's a cat.
I mean, he's not the most attractive cat, but yeah, he's no dog.
Yeah, you got a mustache.
Daniel, use the scratch post.
Enjoy scratch post.
Oh, that feels good.
I love that. It's so good.
No. Once was enough. Pull yourself together, man.
It's so like worn as well. Like everybody in the class
Yeah.
is like
Yeah, no, it's adorable. I mean, that's one of the things that's so great about the art in those old school adventure games is the screens have all these little details that give you, story without saying anything. And I absolutely want us to try and recapture that. I think this is the one.
So Daniel, and the fact that you can lick things. You can lick.
Oh yeah, I mean. Licking is great. Really... I think this is one of those hotspots I mentioned where the text is super noir, like almost out of place. Apparently not. Oh wait, it was this one.
Some cats like to tease their dinners.
No, it wasn't that one. Which one was it? Maybe it was this one.
Desperate young cats, tricked into dancing for low pay and bad claw work. They'll scratch up and down that post for you, but get any closer, you might get more than you bargained for.
It's like, wow, okay, thanks, Cuddles. That's heavy.
Way to bring the mood down.
What a down.
I mean, it's we certainly aren't against having serious moments in the game. We have quite a few, and I think how serious they get will actually surprise a lot of people. But hotspots especially is a way to add levity to the world and interest rather than just reinforcing that, yes, okay, this is a crime-filled city. We've established that already by talking to the chief. He's told us, there's a bunch of crime families and they're doing bad stuff and something bad's going down. So, that's enough. Let's rather use the rest of the world to be more interesting, because even though it's a crime-ridden city, it's not Gotham. There's more going on here than just people being gunned down in the street or cats being gunned down in the street all the time. So, yeah.
I think that's what's so fun about designing the environments, is that a lot of the time I'll just go crazy and I don't know what you guys are going to pick as hotspots, and then seeing like what gets chosen out of all the props I've put in the scene.
I mean, but that's part of the fun for us as well, getting your stuff back, and we look at all these great things we can actually highlight as interactables, and that oftentimes we use that to establish Cuddles' character a bit more.
That's probably completely not how it's done in professional video game development. They probably plan everything out in advance and the artist has to draw that. But we're just more like, ooh, what have you drawn? Ooh, that's so cool. Let's do that and that and that and that. Ooh, and we can do this. And I mean, often the art will reinform the writing, because usually there's a first draft of the writing and then the art is done based on that. And then I will adjust the writing based on the art, because I like it when characters... I mean, if I'm talking to Kukowski here and he says something about the environment, like if he says something like, go stand over there by the dancing cats or something, it immediately makes it feel more real, because the character is referring to something you can see, So those little touches, I love doing that. It's very time consuming, but I love it.
Well, but like we said, that collaborative approach is really special, and I think it really has massive implications for the quality of how you feel about what you're playing. It's even related to this thing that we've gotten really into called retro scripting, which is basically just you script backwards. You start at the end, and I don't know. It's this thing that they coined for doing Rick and Morty, and not that this game necessarily has the same sense of humor as Rick and Morty, but I think you can make an argument that it has a similar scripting methodology where you allow jokes to come organically from a variety of places. And like I said,
it makes everything feel more natural, more genuine. And I think that really genuine feeling is what
people
for
will
me, it makes this game so special.
Yeah.
When I put this video on Twitter later, I'm just going to title it, come listen to us pat ourselves on the back for 2 hours. I mean,
taking a victory lap for this Duncan,
honestly, we're imagining that everyone's going to love this game as much as we do, and the demo has had a very positive reception, which has been a relief. I mean, there was always the chance that we would put this out there and people would go, "Oh, that was weird, no thanks." But knowing that people are willing to come with us on what we're building is fantastic and inspires us to to try even harder, for the last stretch and really make this something amazing. So this is, I would say this is less patting on the back and more self-motivation. It's like, okay, it's working. This is, people like this. You can do this. It's going to happen,
It's the same excitement kind of permeating everything that we do whenever we sit down to work on this together. And I'm imagining even when you're working with like level design people that aren't us, like there's the same kind of general sense of excitement, like we're working on something
they work
special.
with people who aren't us.
Oh, what?
Did I okay that?
No.
I mean, it has been there since the beginning. Everyone we've worked with has said, they love it, but it's different when it's someone you're paying essentially to say how happy they are to work on a project and giving it to a bunch of, literally, I mean, we had tens of millions of impressions, page visits, not all of them translated into demo downloads, but literally millions of people had a chance to play the game, and that was incredibly stressful because it's like, you see some, I mean, never mind the fact that the first day Steam messed up and the demos weren't visible, and that was like 5 hours that felt like 5 years, but anyway, that got sorted. But then you're just sitting there, and then the first day goes by and there's not a single comment, and you're like, is that good? Is that bad? What does that mean? Is this the end of the project? You every possibility runs through your mind simultaneously, and then someone will post a video where they play it and they're like, yeah, it was pretty good, and it's like Jesus himself has leant down from heaven and touched you upon the brow to say it is good. And then someone else will say, oh, but I didn't like this about it, and you have to restrain your initial impulse to just stab them and say, you don't know what that took, and to say, no, I understand where you're coming from. That's actually a good point. I mean, there has been a lot of very helpful feedback. The length of the start is obviously the biggest one, and luckily we had already decided to change that. But there was a few other things. Someone said, for example, that when you mouse over a character...
Firstly, as I am on duty, I require you to drop the informalities. Please refer to me as Detective Krakowski.
I had moused off the... Wait, where's my cursor? Oh, right, we were in a conversation, that's why. But yeah, they said, when you mouse over a person you can talk to, it should become a little mouth instead of remaining a little usy paw, and a bunch of little helpful things.
These are the things of development, because actually it was the lick was the talk, but then we missed out being able to lick all the characters in the world. So it's going to remain the little paw.
I was adamant that you must be able to lick things, or lick people. I mean, you can just imagine the sort of stuff that can happen there. So
But for the demo itself, the feedback has been really good. The criticisms as well. We take it in our stride and we look at it. Is this accurate? And if it is, we incorporate it and we look at it, with clear eyes. So it's been great. What is really good is that, from a personal perspective, I've believed in this project, and I know I've seen the full stretch of the project and the scope and where we are now with the full game. And so for me, it's something really special. It's just great when other people play it and they see the same thing. They see it and they want to invest in it, and they go, you know what, I'm going to enjoy this. That's the biggest thing to take away for me from this.
I think even so we've mentioned a number of times the collaborative instinct that you guys have with voice and with the level design and the artwork. And I think in the same way, you have the same collaborative spirit with the audience, where if you have constructive criticism, or if you have people inputting their opinions and sharing their enthusiasm for the game, and then being like, well, here's what I would want, and here's something I want to see more of. I think people can rest assured that those things are going to be considered and collaborated on, because that's what this entire project it's a kind of a foundational, fundamental part of this process, which I think is very encouraging, especially when it's like, oh, here's like, I'm enthusiastic. I feel like this could help. And it's like, okay, let's do it. Let's keep on working. So.
Secondly, sitrep is a law enforcement term, Cuddles. You are not authorized to employ it.
No, I think.
It's going to be so interesting to see which characters are favorites for which people when it goes live, because I think different characters are going to appeal to different people for very different reasons.
The situation is that I've been assigned to guard the premises.
Oh, the text there actually still says premises. I forgot about that. Premises.
Krakowski, he said, they mentioned a couple times here, Cuddles was like, what's the sit rep? And then Krakowski's like, well, the sit rep is a law enforcement term. The situation. So sit rep, I really enjoyed reading that line because I'm familiar with the use of sit rep from Battlestar Galactica. They would always be like, what's the sit rep? sit rep, please, sit rep. Like it was a constant in Battlestar Galactica, and that's like one of my favorite shows. And so as soon as I read that, I was like, yes, sit rep. I felt like Cuddles in that moment, and then to be like, dismissed by law enforcement.
Well, and in such a firm way, like there's
situation.
Krakowski's is so
pedantic,
and the guy who's voicing him, his name's Doug McKeag. He's like a 40-year theater veteran in our city, and he's the most incredibly interesting person you've ever met. He's he's almost like the Dos Equis man.
The most interesting man in the world.
Yeah, the most interesting man in the world. Just his house is full of narwhal tusks and suits of armor, and he just built a spire on his house, and he's very, very interesting, and he's this incredible performer. So to have someone like that, especially from a theater background.
I remember we talked about him, and I said I was going to incorporate those elements you just mentioned into Tybalt's character, and it has been done. Now, of course, no one in chat has any idea who Tybalt is, but I guarantee you he is fantastic.
He'll be a fan favorite. Yeah, for sure.
I think every character is going to end up being a fan favorite.
Yeah. More demos to come out of him.
We've given the bigger part of the game to some playtesters, and it's so interesting. If people come back, they say, Edna's my favorite character, or Pepe is just fantastic. So it's interesting because we haven't gotten consistent feedback that this one character is always dependent on person, which has been a fascinating thing to actually see. So there's different characters. People relate to different characters in the game, which is really good.
And once we start getting the final voice in for these characters, we're going to begin showing who they are. So we're going to start announcing characters in the game, how they look, and then the voices with them. So there'll be a short clip, and that's going to be a fantastic process. I can't wait. We've got such a good cast. I mean, you guys can't even, talking now to the people in chat, but you can't even imagine some of the voices we've got coming. It's just so good.
Yeah, it'll be special once we get to
really,
show more.
Really good.
Yeah.
Now, please step back, or I will be forced to make you step back. With force. Forcibly.
I'm here on business, so if you'll just let me past, I'll get out of your fur, and we can both get on with our jobs.
Not so fast. Do you have a PI badge and a permit?
Just a random thing I just suddenly thought of. This character is called Krakowski, and that is only because of something William and I say constantly, and we don't even know where it's from anymore. But it's basically, take a walk, Krakowski, you're a good cop. We don't know where that's from. It's just the name Krakowski. I don't know if it's a trope
that gets very invested in something, and he's sort of near losing control, and his boss is like, go take a walk, don't sacrifice your career for this one moment you're giving him, So that's all trope of it.
Without those two things...
Badge? Permit? Are you being serious? Krakowski, you know who I am. You hit me right in the face with a volleyball last week.
The escalation on that line is perfect. I could just see Cuddles replaying it in his mind.
The horror.
Really hurt.
Don't try and cozy up.
Cozy up to Krakowski.
Let's read that as cozying up.
Like cozying up to a rock.
Nobody goes inside without a private investigator badge and an official. I am an officer of the law. If I do not follow the rules, then the very fabric of society would collapse. The entire city would be plunged into a nightmare of crime from which we might never escape. So, it's my duty to be the moral backbone of this city. Therefore, I'll ask you again. Do you have the correct items?
Yes. I mean, no. Well, okay, so don't say no immediately.
That's a great example of this sort of thing where the line as it's written is fine, but just the pacing that you bring to it in the voice acting immediately sells it. It's that thing of like he's judging, can he get away with this? Can he try to push his luck? And then he changes his mind halfway through. It's just fantastic.
No paperwork, no entry, Cuddles.
I left them at the office. But come on, Don't be such a stick in the mud.
This sequence as well.
Right? Good acquaintances, maybe? Distant colleagues?
You see this uniform, Cuddles? This means that I'm on duty. I am not your familiar acquaintance when I'm on duty. I am the only bastion against the forces of darkness seeking to overwhelm this city with their darkness. And you see that lack of badge on you? That means you're currently just a civilian impeding the enforcement of justice. Move along, citizen.
Just to mention some comments here, we've got Lone Guardian against the Song of Lawlessness. And another
that's how he's.
This guy with his force.
That's exactly how he sees himself. You know, he's the one guy keeping the city afloat. I mean,
the only moral and true cop in all of Meow Meow Furrington.
There's going to be a spin-off. It's going to be Krakowski PI.
We have a lot of spin-offs we need
do.
to make.
Oh yeah, we
really do.
Yeah, during the recording session there were about 10 spin-offs that they said it's got to happen because of some or other throwaway line or comment.
Yeah.
Hey, Krakowski.
Not so.
Yeah.
The bulging eye of the law can see that you're lying, Cuddles.
The bulging eye of the law is why.
One of the lines later in the game is he says something like, what is it? Something about claw law. Respect the claw law.
Just here, we've got another comment where I imagine that he's the kind of guy who says things like this and then he falls asleep on duty.
Wow.
Just comment on that, you know.
What's an interesting thing to say?
Yeah. He takes the interesting route in the second part, so you're not far, but we'll leave it there.
What's actually
We didn't have all the info.
No, that's not.
We don't know yet. Detective Fuzzball should have.
Actually.
No.
Oh wait, I think I've done that one already.
Goodbye. You see what I'm dealing with, Ramon?
I absolutely love how Cuddles anthropomorphizes his recorder. It's literally one of my favorite parts of the game. It's like Ramon is his little friend and he can tell him anything, and does.
Yeah.
Cute.
Conversation with Krakowski turns into a pointless game of cat. Whiskers. There's no getting around him tonight. I'll have to head back to the office to get...
Cuddles! No further conversations at my crime scene. Move along.
I also enjoyed playing off tropes to do with adventure games like that, where, you know, characters will often stand there and say something to themselves, and the character standing nearby will just sort of stare blankly or ignore them. But if this is a real world, then, you know, things you say can be heard by people around you.
This is definitely on my top 5 least tasty scratch posts now. Top 5 is good enough. I don't need to lick it again.
Oh, is this not lickable? Oh wait, we took that out. Forgot about that.
Back so soon? Did the villains hear you were on the case and instantly hand themselves in?
Oh, haha, very funny. You know what isn't funny? Officer Krakowski. Sourpuss wouldn't let me into the crime scene.
This was also back when I was still trying to cram cat puns in everywhere.
Just doing his job. You know how much he loves the pageantry of it all.
I also like how Tabby, she understands. Like, she understands why Krakowski is like he is, and that empathy extends to all the characters she interacts with, you know? Cuddles, I mean, trying to think how to describe him. He's not a bad cat, but he can be a bit blind sometimes, you know? Whereas Tabby often just understands.
Yeah, well, he can take a day off now and then. He's seen me
I think
countless
there's a lot of sides to Tabby. Tabby's a
shouldn't
deep
need to
character.
prove anything with a stupid badge.
Hey, you forgot your private investigator badge again, didn't you? That's the 3rd time this week.
Not true. Only the 2nd.
What about Monday? I had to go down to the police station myself to hand in those papers when they wouldn't let you file them due to a lack of identification.
I just realized, Lucas, remember when I told you, oh no, I changed a certain line because it had the word Monday in, and we don't know if Mondays exist in this world. Apparently, I forgot about that line, but anyway, I'll just let it slide.
Yeah. The cascading effect of making changes like that, yeah.
Or if you count the time you came back for it, then left again after forgetting why you were here.
It's a very forgettable item, all right?
Maybe just also a special mention for the music as well. We've got a guy in America doing it, and it's really also so good. He and we've been lucky with all of the people involved in this project. Really passionate about the project.
Yeah, it's got a sufficiently noir feel without being too dark and heavy. It's very upbeat, light-hearted, very easy to listen to.
To whom it may concern, I am currently out of the country on a research trip. If you need to contact me, please contact the Dean of the Department of Biology at Furrington University, or phone me at this number. Mouse, shell, bell, bunny, bathtub.
Mouse, shell, bell, bunny, bathtub. Let's see if I can remember that.
Hi there! This is Professor Huggy, PhD, LAPD, DHCP. I'm just busy opening an ancient tomb. Oh no! She's been awakened! Quick, bring me the staff of elemental judgment, we must!
The Professor Huggy writing, I had so much fun with it. I just went totally nuts, and I heard from Carol Ann afterwards that it was a struggle to get through because she kept laughing.
It was so funny.
We did a few takes where we, in different ways, but then for each of these, and there's a few different ones, we ended up realizing the funniest way to do it was to have almost no separation between what she's saying, like, I'm Professor Huggy, oh no, and then immediately there's no breath, there's no pause, there's no notice reaction. It's literally just straight into the next part.
It's just as if this is an everyday occurrence for her. She's always prepared to leap into yelling mode,
like right away. She's in the thick of it.
Hello, Professor Huggy here. I'm on an expedition right now, so I can't answer. The tigers are coming back! Oh, deploy the Huggy! Oh, we'll get them this time!
And lines like that, I just love writing because it asks so many more questions than it answers. Honey, tigers, what is going on? Where is she? What is happening where she is?
Yeah.
Are they
Are tigers? Yeah.
Are these?
Oh
no.
She also makes an appearance quite a few times in the game going forward. She's sort of instrumental in chatting to you and helping you solve puzzles, and she keeps mispronouncing Cuddles. She keeps thinking his name's Cinnamon. She's all over the place.
Good day. This is Professor Huggy. At the moment, I'm deep in the forest, and by my whiskers, look at the size of it! Oh, it could destroy everything! Get the space catapult set up!
Oh my word! Yeah, it's just those three. But honestly, I might add another 10 just for fun because I could sit and listen to these all day long. And this was that actually helps segue into something which is like so much of this writing was done blind. Like I wrote stuff that we find funny, and we just kind of hoped that other people would find it funny. And in the end, it seems they have. I'm sure some people have probably been put off a bit or haven't really gotten it and haven't really enjoyed it, but a lot of people have, and that's been so gratifying because the biggest risk I think has always been that we write the stuff trying to be funny and it falls flat and no one thinks it's funny, and at that point the game's dead in the water because if it's a comedy noir that's not funny, it's a dud, so it's so good to. Is that Cuddles with a dog? Well, let's have a look.
Yeah, just look at that. That's one of my favorite
I think
things.
we took this photo that one side.
Well, that's actually not what I intended to do.
Look icon.
Oh, my half-brother Matrick and I. He's a good wolf, if a little flighty.
So this game's set in a world called Firth, and it's not just populated by talking cats. There's talking animals of all different sorts, including wolves, clearly. So Cuddles has a half-brother called Matrick, and you can find out a bit more about him in the world. You can look at certain objects and have certain conversations that give you a bit more backstory about him, but he's not in the world as a character beyond this picture. But we certainly have a lot of ideas about how he fits into the world going forward, as it were.
And just to mention, this is once again one of Kaylin's amazing artwork.
It's very adorable. Just the happy smiles
the
and
relationship between the two. It's incredible.
And of course, Meow as a
details, like the little license plate on there.
Mhm.
That's super cute.
I know it's super good. Oh wait, I can't lick that. I have to lick it like this, I think.
Man, that's so...
Oh, that's boring. Yeah, some of the more boring ones have been updated since. I can never remember what though. Let's see what's under the cushion.
Oh,
What could it be? Quickly, let's vote in chat. What could it be?
My detective is under this cushion.
That's also one thing with the demo. The puzzles are quite simple, but it's because it's the beginning and we wanted to make it relatively easy for people to complete. But that being said, with the revised demo, there will be one or two slightly more challenging puzzles in there.
Well, I'm no expert investigator like you, but I'm gonna hazard it was during the cat nap you took yesterday.
And coming up is my absolute favorite voice line delivery in the entire game.
I was investigating.
Not that one. Sorry, Lucas.
You snore.
That one, when she just says you snore a lot when you investigate. Then it's just perfect. That one line I think perfectly captures their relationship.
But congrats all the same. You were a big cat and you found it all by yourself.
All right, but now you're the... You know, Krukowski also mentioned...
Seriously? I collect all the official documents
there's the
for
folder.
every case. I even put them in a nice folder for you.
All right, the folder. Yes, of course. The folder. The foldery folder. That's it.
You don't know where it is anymore, do you?
I know where it is. It's right there, in my office, by the... So, do you have the permit for this particular case?
I pretty much expected this, so I printed another copy. It's right here on my desk. Try not to lose it.
Thanks, Tabby. I don't know what I'd do without you.
Spend all day arguing fruitlessly with police cats, it seems. Find your badge and get going. Those mobsters aren't gonna break their own legs.
Thanks, Tabby. Takes care of the permit.
Just to mention on Matrix, the picture we saw, someone in the chat, is that Cuddles ... with a dog? And we had the same thing in the stream where someone was like, they're half brothers? How does this work? So we're taking some, we're taking some, what's the word? Agency, creative liberty with it. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I've just now, don't worry.
Stuff.
Yeah.
What's the dealie?
Please refrain from taking that casual tone with an officer of the law, Cuddles. I have a taser, and I'm not afraid to fill in a form to apply for permission to use it. In 3 to 6 weeks.
Hey, Krukowski, I'm just gonna pop inside.
Not so fast. Have you found your PI badge and fax permit yet?
I found the things you wanted. It was really hard. I hope you're grateful.
Yeah, these both seem to check out. I actually expected to see you a while ago. What with the severity of the situation?
What? I stood... Oh, Krukowski, I swear.
The corpse is cooling, Cuddles. The crime scene awaits you.
The corpse is
The
cooling.
law thanks
I
you.
loved that one. The corpse is cooling, Cuddles.
A what, citizen?
Lovely. The law is a lovely.
Delighted to... Oh, and what... Huh.
I just realized that line actually probably has to change because earlier when you talk to him, you ask him what's happened, and he's like, I don't know yet. Fuzzball's inside, and he's keeping an eye on things. So he doesn't technically know that there's been a murder yet. So might need to tweak that.
Spoke to him in between you going to the office, Daniel.
Maybe. Although, well, I was about to mention something about what Fuzzball says inside, but I guess we'll save that for the full game. Dun dun dun. So yeah, going into the club now will end the demo, but I'm just going to stay outside so we can prod around at a few other things. Are there any other questions people would like to ask? I assume that license is talking about the spelling. I think I actually looked that up a lot, and I think in British English it's interchangeable, and American English it isn't, or the other way around. I can't quite remember. Most of our language is in, let me just go here for the silence. Most of our game is in British English, since we're South African. That's the variety we speak here. So there's U's in letters and so on. It's also just to stick it to the Americans, you get so few opportunities. But
Wow, Daniel.
We do the same thing because as voice actors, you're always you're supposed to sound American, like a generalized, vaguely non-distinguishable mid-American accent. And then as Canadians, we find that offensive. So sometimes we've been slowly allowing it to bleed a little bit Canadian because, why not? Why can't people sound Canadian? What's wrong with the Canadian accent?
Well, we don't have time to go into everything that's wrong with it, but we can make a short list, perhaps.
No!
He's drunk with power, guys. But we have a question here that Krakowski mentions a murder, but he says he doesn't know who it is. So, that's stuff that will, in part 2, that'll become clear that there's been a murder of a high-profile individual.
I can guarantee that we've spent a lot of time going over things backwards and forwards to make them consistent. We want the plot to feel consistent. We want it to make sense. We want it to be the sort of plot you can solve in advance and then have the satisfaction of watching things play out and see if you're right. There's definitely a couple of twists and turns, and hopefully those will throw people off. But it's going to be very interesting to see people's take on the main plot, because as much as the plot is certainly very important, and I'm quite pleased with what we've come up with. At the end of the day, the point of this game is for people to laugh and have fun, to watch cute cats, to meet crazy characters, to do point and click things. That's what I think a lot of people want from the genre. In recent years, there's been quite a diversification in the sorts of point and clicks you can get, which is great. Just as the walking simulator has become all sorts of different things, the point and click has become all sorts of different things. But our inspirations are things like Broken Sword, Sam and Max, Monkey Island, and these games have a certain thing about them that we really want to recapture, and the comedy is the core of that at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So, I really, really hope people enjoy that about it.
I always tell people, one of the first things when I gauge how much friends we can be is I'm like, have you guys played Monkey Island? And if they haven't, it's a big problem because I think Monkey Island was formative and foundational to my sense of humor. I remember playing that and just playing. It was the only game I had for however long. Playing the first, second, Curse of Monkey Island, Sam and Max. I 100%ed that game so many times. So these games were fundamental. I would just sit alone for hours clicking through everything. So it really brings me back.
There's a nice feeling to them. Again, you feel like you want to inhabit the world.
Yeah. I was always really sad when I finished the games, especially Sam and Max. It was really, I was like, I wish there was more, And I think now we get to make that more.
It's very much what we've been going for, There's so many. There's some lesser known point-and-click adventures like Sanitarium is one of my favorites, but that's a lot more darker and more gritty. But the range of adventure games, I grew up on this stuff, and I adore the genre, and it's a pity it's fallen out of the mainstream that much. But like, because me and Daniel, we're developing it, we're self-funding it. It's a project. We're making the game we would want to play. We're not beholden to publishers. We don't have to answer to anybody. We put the love and the effort into it, and we're making it the best it can be. And it's nice to see when people play it, they sort of start to see glimpses of it. It's obviously you want to show them everything, and you want to. I mean, we do it with you guys, but you're so excited because you want to show it to the world. But that time will come. We'll just be patient.
I've got 2 pieces of exciting news. One, I have figured out how to get the entire game onto screen at once with 5 minutes left in the stream, so go me. And sorry about that, guys. Yeah, clearly I could not be a professional streamer, so PewDiePie is safe for now. And the other thing is something that I think I'll actually have Lucas announce. We got a little surprise for people who are fans of the game and fans of voice acting.
Do you mean for our announcing to have other people looking for other voices? Is that the one?
Yep.
So we came up with a way to kind of write it in a tweet, and I don't have that in front of me, so I'll kind of just talk about it, from the heart. And as vocal connoisseurs, I think we said in the very beginning, Caroline and I have been voicing since we were 14 years old. And our very first thing that we were in was like a Gundam cartoon back in the day. And then we did Dragon Ball, and we did a bunch of stuff like that. And so now we're in our 30s, and it's been about 20 years of voicing. So I have a lot of opinions about the voices that you hear. And I've heard hundreds and thousands of voices from all sorts of different people from many, many different walks of life. But what I've come to feel, and I think my voice is also guilty of it at times, is that in voice acting, there's not necessarily that much representation in a few ways. And sometimes I've thought to myself, going back to like Looney Tunes, it was a really groundbreaking thing. When is it? Mel Blanc. He would do stutters and things like that. Like, that's all, folks. That kind of stuff wasn't really done before that point. However, even fast forwarding past the Looney Tunes era, you don't really hear a ton of actual genuine things like, say, speech impediments. Like, say, sometimes, especially in Western animation and Western content, there's oftentimes a very limited spectrum of accents and dialects. So you don't necessarily get a huge amount of representation for different vocal flavors. One of the things I say is that when people come up to me, and this happens all the time, they say, "Oh, I was told I have a really great voice. I have a great voice for radio." And almost invariably, it's someone with like a deeper voice, and they, I was told I have a really good voice and blah, blah, blah. And they do, and it sounds great. But, I think it's rather common, comparatively speaking. So as voice artists and voice connoisseurs, what I want to hear are more genuine dialects and accents that aren't as represented in cartoon media and in video game media. And especially I want to open up an opportunity for people with speech impediments and things like that are absolutely never represented in cartoon media, especially not genuinely. I think sometimes characters with a speech impediment are made fun of in voice, and it's used as a thing, whereas it can just be the character. It can just be something that sounds interesting and compelling, and they can perform as they want. So I think along those lines, what we've talked a lot about doing and trying to figure out a way to kind of present this to the world is that we need help finding some of these people, because they're not told that they have beautiful voices that are worthy of representation and worthy of being heard. They don't really explore these opportunities. They don't look for these opportunities. So they're not prepared to have them. And so I don't know anyone that really, or too many people that fit these bills. I want to have more representation that we can put in this content. However, I need help to find these people. So I want to put a call out to the world, to the internet at large, and we'll make a tweet about this so it's easier to share. But I'm hoping that people can help us find for a character, and it's for a paid role, and you'll make money, and we'll kind of work with whoever this person ends up being to make this character. We just want help spreading the word and being like, let's find some of these vocal flavors that don't have any representation.
Like the perfect, unique voice for a character in the game.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's where it comes from in terms of like my heart and the way I think about voice acting. and as well, we need the community to help us with that. So that's something that I'm really excited to talk about and announce, and we'll share more about that on social media, and hopefully find some cool people to work with like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, we were really excited to have just more in the game. I want this game to feel like there's just a bunch of crazy stuff in it, and people can relate to a lot of it, even though it's totally nuts. And the voice is such a big way that you connect to a character. I mean, you can see how Cuddles looks standing there, but when you hear him talk, that's when he becomes a person. And to have someone hear their own voice becoming a person like that in a game, I think is such a powerful thing.
Yeah, it's
I think it'll be really cool.
It's important for us to have representation. We have LGBT representation.
Do we? Who? Oh wait, it's us. That's right. Yeah.
We do, and it's just great having that range of strong female lead. It's important for us to cover that aspect as well. Because that's what we believe and what we follow.
I was just thinking now. Sorry, we got a strong female lead, we got a crazy male lead. Yeah, no, it's all working out.
Yeah, I think it's especially uncommon in voice. Voice performance is I think because it's not always as people don't pay as much attention to some of the politics of it as much. Like it's just less investigated. So I think that means that there's opportunity, and I think we can have a lot of fun with that, and we can have this really just next level vocal performances that a lot of products just simply don't.
Well,
have.
I mean,
right.
If anybody can truly investigate, be Cuddles, not about it.
Yeah.
Assuming he can find the right file.
Really
But yeah, so that's going to be great, and like Lucas said, we'll share more information about that on social media. So on Twitter and what other social media do we use? Instagram?
Facebook.
I can't remember. Facebook, a
Discord,
couple other places. Oh, Discord, definitely, yes. So just make sure you hit that like button. Hooray! I got to say it for the first and hopefully last time in my life. But oh, sorry. Yeah. Smash that like button into teeny little pieces. But yeah, so Twitter and Discord are the two primary places, and then everywhere else we can, and hopefully people will share it far and wide, and we get some awesome voices that could, hopefully this could start something where they can actually get, a career in voice acting if that's something that they realize this, I could actually want to do this. So yeah.
Well, and like I said, I have a lot of opinions about voice, and I think there is a general trend in the voice acting community to go with authentic dialects, authentic accents, and more naturalistic performances and stuff like that. So I think this is a meaningful thing to be like, this is more of the forefront of voice acting, which not necessarily everyone has that kind of interest in, but like, of course I do. I'm
We're very keen.
Let's push the boundaries. Let's do something new. Let's break new ground. And I think that's the really, really cool things that in this project we have that opportunity, and you don't always have that. A lot of projects you're constrained and you have to play within certain bounds. But with you guys, we're allowed to be like, okay, let's actually break new ground right here and do something that is very, very uncommon. So thank you guys for that opportunity.
No, it's
very exciting.
It is. It's going to be great. I mean, we are so excited to get this game into the hands of everyone next year. It's going to be. It's the culmination at that point of 5 years of work, and just the fact that we're going to have it completed will be extremely satisfying. And then to have people enjoy it on top of that is the icing on the cake.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's getting close to 2 hours was about how much time I budgeted, and that worked out very, very well. So, any final questions from the viewers? Any particular? That's not a question.
No. Well, I mean, there is a question mark at the end. It smells faintly of maple syrup in the voiceover room. What's not to love?
Excuse me.
And you'll have a cat on your lap as well.
Oh, no. But the rest seems it seems like good stuff. People seem quite enamored with it.
And if all works out, in 3 more months we'll have a new demo for you on Steam, and that one will definitely blow your socks off. This has been baby steps. This is nothing.
Yeah.
In the next one, he can fly. He can shoot lasers. It's amazing.
That's crazy.
The whole thing's underwater and on the moon at the same time.
Daniel, we need to talk.
Okay, but I think that's about it. So thanks everyone for coming. It's been a really fun couple of hours, and I hope you've gotten all the useful information you wanted about the back of the seedy underbelly of the game. And yeah, if you want to chat to us any other time, hop onto Discord. I'm awake 23 hours a day usually, so I'm always free to chat. William's on there sometime as well. The Hermit guys are on there. Kaylin's on there. Yeah. All right. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a good morning / evening or wherever you are, and yeah, see you around.
Thanks.
Talk soon.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers.
Farewell to the